Hey, hello, welcome to the show. It's me, John Park, and we're here in my workshop for another episode of John Park's Workshop. So accurately named. Can you believe it? Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for hopping over in the chats. Here comes a fly. And thanks for waiting for the spinning wheel to finish spinning. YouTube was thinking about it a lot, but hopefully it's excited to stream, because I sure am. And we've got people over in our YouTube chat right there. That is Dave Odessa and Beata Graf Abdelhagen. Hello, nice to see you. Charles Burniford, hello from Philadelphia. Thanks for stopping by. The other place to check out if you are interested in chatting and there's no one chatting over in some place like Twitch or LinkedIn Learning, and no audio. That's weird. I think Andy, check on your end, because it looks like my mic is on and I see a bouncing meter. So that's the chat right there, though. That's the Discord, and you can get there by going to adafruit.it/Discord. Look for the live broadcast chat channel. It's the one right there. It looks like Paul Cutler says that they have audio on YouTube. So, Andy, that may be a setting on your side to check out. Maybe something got unplugged. Who knows? And look who's there. Hey, thanks for stopping into the chats. We've got Andy Calloway, Paul Cutler, Dan Coliano. Who else is here? Thin Man, hello. Todd Bott, who sees, and this is how Todd hears things. Todd hears in audio visualizers. Cool Dom. Hi, Cool Dom. Thanks for stopping by. All right, so those are our chats. Go check those out if you're interested in chatting. What have I got going on today? I've got a coupon code for you to save some money in the shop. I want to mention the free items that we've got. We've got a recap of the product pick of the week from Tuesday. I've got a CircuitPython Parsec for you in the continuing series on Fruit Jam Library. And then I have a whole smorgasbord of stuff I want to talk about. An upcoming project or two, an ongoing project, a status update on a current project, some little news item kind of things I wanted to shout out. So hopefully I'll get to it all. Let's do it. So I mentioned the coupon code. If you want to save some money in the Adafruit shop, Restore is going to save you 10%. That's the coupon code. Just type in Restore, R-E-S-T-O-R-E. That'll save you 10% over in the Adafruit shop. So just go to Adafruit. This is Adafruit right here. Go to Adafruit. That's the shop. As soon as you type that in, you have walked into our store. If you want to buy some new stuff, check out View All New Products right on the main page. We've got some of these cool new Raspberry Pi Touch Display 2, 10-inch. I have some plans with that, I think, maybe. We have a new variant on the SCD40 series of true CO2 temperature and humidity sensors. We've got these WWA, warm white, cool white, amber, I think, something like that. Not in that order. They're NeoPixels, but it's 3 white diodes in there. Pretty cool. Those just came out. And on and on. You'll save 10% on any of that stuff just by typing in Restore into the coupon code slot on the way out as you check out. The thing is, we only have that until midnight tonight. So if you want to buy something and you want to save some money, that's your coupon code. East Coast time, midnight. That's when it turns into a monster, gremlin, don't get it wet. I don't know. Something like that. But restore, that's your coupon code. That will save you the money. Go save the money. All right, next up, oh, looks like we have a status update. Andy Calloway's cordless headphones died. Fixed now. Phew. Hey, it is a safe bet if you don't hear audio that it's a problem on my end. I think we've all learned that by now. I have a habit of not turning on microphones. I've gotten better, I think. This new mixer makes it a little more obvious to me. Okay, next up, let's do a little recap of my product pick of the week show that happens on Tuesdays. And I give you a big discount. Actually, we, I should say, not I. The new products team, Travis, the whole gang, stash usually 50 or 100 of the item before the show so that we have plenty on hand. And if it's an Adafruit product, we usually are able to throw a 50% discount on it during the show. So check it out on Tuesdays, 4 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Pacific time. And this week, I have a little recap to show you. It is the FT232H USB to everything breakout. So this is useful for running a computer through USB to this board and then plug into this general purpose I/O, I2C, SPI. I have a USB cable that's plugged into my computer, and then that's going to the FT232H. Then over the STEMMA QT cable, I'm going to a little temperature sensor here, and then continuing along on that same I2C bus over to this little 0.91-inch OLED display. I'm running a Python program on my computer, querying the temperature off of this and the time off of the computer, and then displaying those at the top there. It's changing every, I think, 5 seconds or 10 seconds. I'm also querying my CPU load on the computer. It is the FT232H USB to everything breakout. And that's what it was. One thing I've been thinking about, I don't know if you've, how many of you have used a little like Raspberry Pi running Claude or other LLM that is able to write code while using a camera to look at things or bring inputs. I realized this could be, the FT232H could be a pretty good device to give access to one of your little code writing clankers there, because it would be able to do stuff with sensors without having to write a code.py to put onto a microcontroller and restart it. So it could be an interesting way to do development, I think. I haven't tried it, but I know Foamy Guy's been doing it with some of the iterative design on things like the Teenage Engineering microphone and some others. So that just occurred to me. That could be a neat device to plug into one of those little claw bot kind of things. I know my terminology is weeks or months old. I haven't touched any of those, and I know they were calling them claw bots for a while, and then that immediately was old news and everyone moved on to something else. It's happening quick. I should probably try it. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Tide says, definitely agree. Did some Blinka testing on PC with I2C SPI displays. Well, there you go. Yeah, has anyone written a guide? Do we have a guide? We might have a guide. I want to look at a guide on setting up a little single board computer or similar NUC or something like that to have full access to writing its own code and iterating with hardware. Seems like that could be interesting. Oh, Tide says we'll have support for that FT232H and the MCP2221A. I'll bring this up while I'm talking. In upcoming Whippersnapper V2. Very cool. Andy Calloway says, tell Claude to write it in COBOL. Okay. Speaking of writing stuff in COBOL, no, terrible transition. Speaking of writing things in CircuitPython. Okay. Let me bring up my code view here. There we go. For the CircuitPython Parsec today, I'd like to continue looking at the FruitJam library, and in the peripherals section, this time we're going to talk about NeoPixels. So once again, just like with using buttons, and I am going to use buttons in this example, but just like we looked at that last week as having a sort of high-level library where you don't need to know things like what pin your buttons are on or if they're pull up or pull down, this high-level library, similar to Portal Base, It gives us access to peripherals that are built right onto the board, right onto this Adafruit fruit jam, and it knows where stuff is, so we don't have to get as granular. So in this case, using NeoPixels is really easy. What I'm going to do is import from Adafruit fruit jam peripherals, import peripherals, and then I can set up fruit jam as the name of my peripherals object, and then I can call fruitjam.neopixels. That's it. I didn't have to tell it where they were, how many were in the strand, what the color order was, none of that stuff. It's all known. So I can simply say fruitjam.neopixels, brightness is 1. Fruitjam neopixels, fill. I'll turn them all off at first. Fruitjam neopixels, and I'm going to pick the one on the bottom here. That's neopixel 4, starting at index 0. I'm going to set that to a not too bright white, and that's why you see this bottom pixel is lit white here, right at the bottom. It's set to 202020 in hex, and then neopixels show. I've also got the buttons set up so I can then light up the top 3 neopixels corresponding to these 3 buttons that are along the side. And all we do in code is I'm creating a buttons object that has the button 3, button 2, and button 1 values in there. So it's just simply saying fruitjam.button3 returns if it is pressed or not pressed. And then I'm iterating through this little loop. So for I pressed in enumerate buttons, so look through that list of 3 things, light up the fruitjam.neopixels I, so 0, 1, or 2, to colors, and I have a little list of colors up here. And if it's pressed, we light it up to that color, and if it is not, then we're going to set it to black. So that's how we get it lit red when I press the top button and black or off when I release it. You can do these in combos, of course, and it's really, really nice feedback without doing a whole lot of code. At the end of setting all those colors, you then call fruitjam neopixels show to actually set that state. And then I have a little bit of a sleep here to prevent flooding the thing. So that is how you can use the peripherals within NeoPixel library to access your NeoPixels. And that is your CircuitPython Parsec. All right. Let me get this out of the way. By the way, let me go back to the overhead. I have to say thanks again to C. Grover, who sent me a little Dymo labeler. I hadn't had one of these little Dymo labelers in a long time, and I have quite a few of these fruit jams from doing the unboxing and ongoing projects with them. It's very convenient for me to have labeled on here. That's the one for Parsec, so I can now finish the show, unplug this, set it over here, and then when I'm prepping for the next one, I know which one to go and grab. So let's hear it for Dymo labelers. That one right there. You've got a whole ton of them. I've got a real old historical one that's for aluminum. It just embosses aluminum tape, but it's disappeared into a drawer somewhere. So I'm glad to have this one. Thanks, C. Grover. Okay, let's move on with a few little sort of news item kinds of things I wanted to talk about. So let me grab my notes here. First thing, I wanted to mention that the new episode of the Bootloader podcast with Todd Kurt and Paul Cutler was released this past Monday, and I encourage you to go check it out. Let me see if I have I think I have a web page up for the Bootloader here somewhere. So there's the Bootloader. It's at thebootloader.net. And I've only had a chance to listen to part of it, but in the first section, if you're not familiar with the Bootloader, Todd and Paul each come up with 3 neat items to recommend and discuss. And in the first segment, Todd was talking about USB cable testers. If you click on the show notes on the main page, or if you go to a particular episode, this is episode 35, congrats guys on 35 episodes, there is a transcript in here and there are links to the recommended items. And Todd mentioned this one right here, the Tredix USB cable tester, which I've pulled up their own website on. I immediately purchased one. I think it was $45 on Amazon. It's $49 on Treatix.com. This has a port for pretty much every common USB cable type. So C and A on one end, and then micro, mini, the fast 3, and a couple others, another C on the bottom. And you plug you loop your cable through this, and it tells you what that cable's got. So great timing, because I just got from one of my daughters a huge bin full of USB cables. They were clearing out their closet. And I want to look through some of these and recycle some. So particularly anything that's just a charge-only cable and doesn't have data is out of here. And so this will tell me. But also I'm really interested in the speeds of the USB-C. I think this will tell you if they have Thunderbolt. It'll tell you if they have power delivery. So all of that stuff, this looks tremendous. He also recommends a slightly less expensive version. I think it's this one here, which doesn't have a fancy display. It's 30 bucks. And I think there's another one on Treatix's. You'll see it if you go to Treatix on Amazon, which is just LEDs only, no screen. So anyway, go check out the bootloader, and if you're dealing with a giant mess of USB cables, maybe consider picking that up. I don't know, do you guys have affiliate links or anything? Can you make any money? I didn't see any affiliate links. I hope you do, because it's a great recommendation. I hope you make a little cash for your efforts there. So that was my first item there. Let me go check that off. So relatedly, there is a Discord server for the bootloader, and I was over on the Discord server there, and I saw a mention of this wacky thing. Paul Cutler mentioned that this thing exists. So Keychron, I don't know if you're familiar with Keychron. They make keyboards, some pretty nice keyboards. I have one of them somewhere. I don't think this is one, but I have a Keychron keyboard somewhere. Nice mechanical keyboards, and they also do some small or normal size macro pads. But this is a giant 10 by 10 row RGB, individual RGB backlit macro pad, which is just bonkers, especially for that price. I think it has their own version of a Cherry MX Red. I think that's what the Keychron Apex switch. That's one of the things people like this need to do eventually, is stop buying their key switches from someone else and start contracting their own. So I think they're doing their own key switches now, maybe their own keycaps. These are, I think, smoke shine through style or translucent style keycaps. But interesting thing about this is it uses QMK, or at least maybe it's a Keychron branded version, but it uses QMK as the firmware for it. So I'd be really curious what chip it's running on, if it's just their own custom thing. Probably they're a keyboard manufacturer. They may just have their own little custom chips, but I am kind of curious, could someone shoehorn their own thing on there, turn it into a MIDI sequencer, that kind of stuff? $65, I'm tempted. I don't need another huge macro pad, but I am slightly tempted. So if anyone picks one up or sees a teardown of it that gives you more info, let me know. I'm curious. So here's, they have a exploded view somewhere of their layers. I don't know where it went. Anyway, pretty neat looking. If it's not for a music thing, I'm a little perplexed at how you would use that big of a macro pad. You couldn't possibly know that like 5 rows over, 3 buttons down is the thing that launches your Microsoft Word or something like that. Could you? I mean, they're color coded, so maybe, but the thing is outrageous. But yeah, program with QMK and Launcher. So I guess Launcher is their app, but it does use QMK in some way, and they're saying they support Mac OS, Windows OS, and Linux. Hot swappable, so you could pop out, maybe you want some clicky keys in a couple spots. And oh yeah, there's their little breakaway view. And I noticed if you go to their support for it, besides the manual, they also have a CAD file for the top plate. Just that, though. Who knows why? Oh yeah, someone in the chat mentioned maybe for a Chinese keyboard. Todd says maybe separate emojis per, and you can just smash the keys to type out long, long strings of emojis. Interesting. So yeah, that came out. Thanks for the tip, Paul, from the Discord server. Okay. Next thing I've got in the news and stuff that JP is interested in at the moment, I have sunk a lot of hours. Hopefully this won't show how many because I don't think I'm logged in. I've sunk so many hours into this new game that's been out for about 4 days. And big surprise, it's a video game about repairing electronics. And I don't know what that says about how close this is to what I do for my real job and for life, but I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It's called Restory. Restory Chill Electronic Repairs. And it's like $17 or so on Steam. I don't know if you can get it elsewhere. I'm playing it on a Mac, which is great. Sometimes games like this come out only on Windows at first, but this one came out on Mac. It's probably Steam approved for playing on things like a Steam Deck, or I have there's an operating system I'm running, Bazite, which will run Steam stuff. So you could go off a little bit to the side, but Windows and Mac are available right now. And it is set in the early 2000s. You are repairing some really familiar looking electronics gear. So some of them they don't have the licenses. Most of them they don't have the licenses for. So this is a Nokia phone, but they call it Pokia. There's Sony Walkman, which is the Noni Go Boy or something like that. There's a Nintendo DS. There's some Motorola phones, Xbox controller, and they do have a license. This is something about Atari. Atari will license their name out. So there are absolutely perfect Atari 2600 and the CX40 controller. So you'll take orders, or people will walk up to your little shop. They'll say, "Hey, can you fix my Atari 2600?" You have a price listed for what it'll cost to fix it, and then you set apart disassembling it by clicking on screws, brushing stuff off that's dirty, resoldering chips that have become desoldered. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's all I'll say about it. I'm absolutely loving it. Go check it out. It's called Restory. And there's something very satisfying, I think, about a virtual version of a thing where you will never actually lose a screw or a part. And when you order replacement parts, they come almost immediately, which is very nice. You don't have to wait 5 days. So that's Restory. That's my new obsession. If you're wondering where I am, I'm in front of my computer playing that. All right, let's click some things off. And that, okay. Next off, let's talk about some upcoming projects and ongoing projects. So first one, I want to grab this. I'll bring it over. I'll bring it back over here, and then I'll also throw it under the bench later. But you may recall I've been creating a port of Space Invaders for the Fruit Jam and RP2350 sort of in general. And it is not emulation, it's actually porting the code over to this system, and it's running beautifully. However, I can go grab it, the controls, hold on. I'm gonna turn on that shotgun mic for a second while I chat over here. The controls that I have right now, as I'm testing, this is not USB. While USB is an option, I am just going for, we have so few buttons on it that I'm going for GPIO pins with little buttons. So we've got that little GPIO header on the Fruit Jam, and I've just got my little test jig of buttons there. Wow, that really doesn't want to focus. Focus. There we go. I bet it was focusing on the wires and not the buttons. So that's not going to cut it in the long term, but since we've got this nice socket header on the top there, I want to plug a little cable, a little IDC cable into there, and then run that to a proper control panel. So this will be arcade buttons, and this, of course, set me on a journey about Space Invaders controls and control panel. So I found on eBay for a really low price a new old stock aluminum with, I think, silkscreen printed info on it. This was a replacement that was made by a third party called Willis. I don't even think they put their name on here anywhere. And this looks about 90%, 95% the same as the real one, but they just made a slightly different graphic over here for who knows what reason. And they put a drop shadow behind these numbers, and the typeface is a little bit different, but pretty much it's the same. And it was not so hard to find compared to a pristine original from the actual Williams, or Midway rather, the Midway arcade game. Taito, the original in Japan, didn't use two buttons. It used a joystick that was just left-right, not four-way, two-way. But I didn't even bother looking for that because that'll be rarer and harder to find, at least in the US. So I've got this, and as you can see, I've screwed in two arcade buttons on here. And this gets into a little bit of a discussion about arcade buttons, also what I'm going to do with this. So I think I'll build a box, and hoping to put the overlay on that, drill some holes out for the buttons, and then mount the fruit jam underneath with the power and HDMI coming out the back. If you look at, I'm going to go to this. Let me go to this down shooter for a second. If you look at this kind of button, this is pretty much the same as what I have plugged in there. This is, I don't know what this kind is called, but these were these tall concave buttons, which are similar in a lot of ways to the type that were on an 80s and 70s and 80s game, at least externally. However, this has a micro switch on the bottom. So you may be familiar with these types of buttons because they are really common and they allow you to replace the micro switch. So the button itself is this, and it moves these two little legs, which then contact on one side or the other this clicky little micro switch. So you can buy a whole bunch of different types of switches to put in there. I've got some switches right here that are meant for different uses, so they have different actuators, but this would totally fit. It just happens to have a little roller activator on there for, you know, different use, a little bump switch kind of thing. But these types of switches are actually, they're great, but they're also not accurate to the game. They're not accurate to Space Invaders and a number of other games of that era because those used leaf switches. So while the top of the button looked an awful lot like that, there was no micro control or micro switch underneath. There was simply a little cylinder that pressed out, and then that contacted a leaf switch, which I will, let me pull up my browser here. I'll show you what I'm talking about with that. So this is, can I zoom in on you? So this is a leaf switch, but this is a very modern one designed to fit into this type of button. So leaf switches are what you find in pinball machines. It's just like it sounds like. It's two spring steel leaves, and when those contact, you've closed the switch. So just pressing one down deflects it a little bit until it contacts. Thing people like about them is you can adjust the gap between them to make them more or less sensitive, so where in the stroke the thing gets pressed down. So I was really excited to learn that this company, Rolly, makes these replacement switches that pop into this type of arcade button that usually uses a micro switch, but now allows you to put a real leaf switch in there. So I'm thinking about getting some of those. The prices vary, but a switch plus the push button here you can see is $4, not a terrible price. This game has 5 switches in it. I may only put the leaf switch in 3 of them. I may use regular micro switches for the player 1 and player 2, because who cares? That's not part of the gameplay. So just the 3, the left, right, and fire, may be what I spend the money on. But I can have the same top, the same switches, just 2 of them have micro switches underneath. If you, whoops, let me just open up a tab. If you bear with me for a second, I'll show you what the original leaf switch would look like. 1 second. This is what the button looks like. So push button, you can see it doesn't have all the little grippy stuff in the bottom to hold that micro switch. It's just a dumb cylinder with a spring in there pushing it back up. Let's see, Space Invaders, I'll do control panel. And yeah, if you go on eBay, you will often find a picture of the bottom side. So there you go. This will show it. So there you can see there's a big leaf switch, more like what I've seen in pinball machines. Big old leaf switch, 2 wires running to it, or sometimes they're daisy chaining it, so there's gangs of wires. But leaf switches can be made into multi-way, multi-position switches, just stacking them. Some start closed and open when they get pressed, some start open and closed when they're pressed, and some are collections of those things, allowing you to do little bits of logic. But this is what they look like in here. However, you can see there's a somewhat elaborate little galvanized metal bracket that goes into a recess. I don't want to deal with all that, so I think I'm going to go with this modern equivalent. So I'll keep you updated on that, as well as my design for doing the sort of build in a control panel kind of thing. No integrated monitor on this one. I think I'm just going to have plugs to go to either an HDMI or a HDMI converter to S-Video. That might look nice on a CRT. And there's a sick part of me that's interested in seeing if I can get the Fruit Jam to output black and white chroma and luma signal directly. So that could be a future project, but not for this iteration. Okay. So that's what's going on with Space Invaders. C. Grover said, I spot a cold solder joint on that micro switch. Yeah, this one is looking bad. If you're talking about this one right here, yeah, it's not looking good. It's not my finest work, and it's about 15 years ago, I think, or more, that I soldered that together. So we'll ignore that. Paul Cutler said that Paradise Arcade is local. Let me bring up my chat here while I talk to y'all. Paradise Arcade's local. May have bought all my arcade parts there. Good people. Now you see, that's a nice life hack, because you're always going to pay like $12 shipping for a single button from a small retailer if you have it shipped to you. So having a local place to go is a good idea. Let's see. Next up, let's talk about this over here. I'm giving you, like I said, the full party platter of things that I'm thinking about and possibly planning. So more arcade stuff. I got this pretty cheap, like half price. It was $20-ish used on eBay, and it's a really neat little purpose-built arcade that just plays Pac-Man, but with a full-size joystick, which is pretty neat. And I like the form factor, so I'm not going to do anything with this today. I was thinking of tearing it down, but I'll leave it alone. There is one good teardown video of it online if you're curious. And the nice thing is they've put a properly gated 4-way joystick. So Pac-Man is unplayable if you can accidentally hit diagonals, but this one has a properly gated stick that actuates 4 little MX switches or mechanical key switches in there, which is pretty neat. If you peel the rubber off here, you can take off 4 screws and just reveal the bottom of it. But that's interesting. I kind of think scaling that up a bit and putting a bigger, like for real joystick like this. This one has a gate to allow you to switch between 4-way and 8-way. So I've been sitting on this one and not doing anything with it, so I think that could be an interesting Pac-Man build. Or Ms. Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man. That's upcoming. And then, let me get back to my notes here. Good. Covered. By the way, I did find a really nice resource for the different Willis overlays that they made and a history of the company. So it's worth checking out because they made some really beautiful. Some of them went kind of beyond the game. I think the Galaga one or Galaxian one is like real elaborate. But go look for Willis CPO, Control Panel Overlay, and find some interesting stuff. If you look for control panel overlays right now, occasionally you'll find people printing them on metal if they're making new ones today for arcade restoration, but a lot of them are a vinyl sticker, not die cut, just with like a guide on them for you to cut your holes, which is great, especially if you're just trying to clean up and fix something. But I was hoping to and lucked out in being patient and finding a good price on a metal original. Okay, next up, let's talk about this wacky thing right here. What is this? What is that? That's a little more obvious what that is. Let me head over there and talk about my thrift shop find of last week. So this is oh my gosh, not again, Mike. The front view camera has died, and I'm still perplexed because I actually don't think it's hardware. I thought last week it might be the hardware doing that. Let me attempt to unplug, remove, and replug that. Stand by, please. Let's see. Let's power again. Oops. All right, does that have... No, it's a still image. All right, we won't be looking at it from there. I'll just do this one with no front view. That's what's on my SD card, an old picture of a dog. So it shows up when this camera goes live. All right. All right, so you can see here, this is a kick drum pedal from a drum kit. But it is a electronic drum kit, so where a kick drum would sit, it has this pad. So this is, as you can see, a little spring and chain driven kick mallet, and then this is a piezo element under some rubber. And I haven't taken this apart, but I wanted to show you what I'm doing to sort of characterize it and see what it gives us. So what I've got right now is this has a 1/4-inch mono jack in the side. So I've taken a short little patch cable, and first off I've just got some clips from my multimeter going to the piezo, and then on the multimeter what I'm going to do is set this to a reasonable range. These piezos can give you up to 10, 20, 30 volts when struck hard for just a super short period of time. So to capture that, we can go to min-max mode and go to peak. So right now it's saying it's sort of sitting at 1.6. There we go, 23. So that'll give me 23 volts briefly. If I clear that, let's see, can I get a range where we see? I thought I had a range where I was going to see. There we go. In AC mode, we'll see it. So you can see I can tap this. If you just look at that little meter there. So it captures a pretty nice gradient of force on it. So after kind of taking a look at what I was getting there, I plugged some of those values into a calculator online to come up with a decent resistor value, which I've now forgotten. I think this is a mega ohm resistor that I have plugged into a Metro, just bridging the two contacts. And then I'm going into ground and an analog input, and I made a little 1/4-inch receiver jack here, which I don't have a computer over here to plug into, so we'll maybe do this next time. But basically by setting this here, I can now get like 127 values of pressure if I want to use this as a kick drum for MIDI. So just trigger MIDI kick drum note and give it a velocity of anywhere from 0 to 127. And that seems like a good level of granularity to get out of this. I'm not going to have the kind of precision to do 127 levels accurately, but you know, soft, a little bit louder, medium, and really kicking the heck out of the thing. That's more what's to be expected. The lucky thing about this is that it cost me $27, which is a steal because I think these go for $100, $200, something like that. And it's a whole lot of mechanism for the price. So yay to whoever bought this and got tired of it and brought it to the thrift shop. It was a lucky find. And I don't know what I'm going to drive with it, but maybe I'm just going to have it under my desk so that I can play a kick drum at high volume whenever I need to. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn how to play the drums. All right, so let's jump back over here. Just want to check the chats. Good. Okay, yeah, so sorry about the camera thing again. I need to dig into that, but it is a hard one to figure out because it works until it doesn't, and it takes a long time for the problem to show up. It was working fine earlier. And it may just mean I need to quit my broadcast software right before I go on air and kind of set a couple things up again. So, all right, and then it's good for getting my kicks. That's right, Secret River. I think last thing I want to talk about is the progress on my Learn guide for the arcade attaché-cade, the briefcase arcade. I'll show it over there in a second, but first I wanted to just give you a preview of the Learn guide for it. Let me see if I'm logged into Learn so you can see that. 1 second. Learn admin. Okay, so here is, this is a doozy. So here's the stuff that goes into it, including these by the way, I'm now on like every feed of mine for any kind of thrifted stuff, estate sale stuff. Facebook Marketplace is full of these since I started looking for them. So I can assure you, you will still find plenty of these attaché arcade cabinet donor turntables here. So these are the parts that go into it. I've got a disassembly guide for you there. So that's the case we're starting with. This one I got for $12.99. Show you what we're removing. Unbinding some of the wires. Speaker connector, unfortunately, so I started the second build or rebuild with a second case, and it had a slightly different JST connector, so it did not fit perfectly into our stereo bonnet. So luckily our stereo bonnet also has screw terminals, so I just cut it and stripped it and screwed it into those, but it's neater when it's the one that just plugs in, I thought. So your mileage will vary there. So there is the MDF vinyl coated top plate that we keep. Pull out the back panel, and now we're ready to start 3D printing some pieces. So this is the kind of final set of what you'll need. You'll have a little monitor holder that goes into the top case. Those are those two tall ones on the left. You'll have the top plate that the arcade buttons and joystick goes into, as well as a little cutout for the cables that come from the monitor. The pop-in USB-A panel mount for external joystick, which I found to be very helpful. There's cases where if you have messed up anything to do with your arcade button wiring, it can become really hard to navigate things. So just plugging in a PlayStation PS4 controller into that means you have a second controller you can go and correct issues with. So there's the blue parts here are the back panel, the feet that are also the lid stop, and then the little nub that holds the joystick handle on the side of the case. Case prep here is mostly putting those things we just printed in, including a couple of USB pass-throughs for power on the back, our hinge stops, drill a couple pilot holes and then screw those in. I've decided to keep the original hinges. Before, you may remember a few weeks ago I had gotten some friction hinges, but they're unnecessary with the little lid stops, and this is much easier to install than dealing with new hinges. So we plug in our stops there. There's our little joystick shaft holder. Again, a nice reuse here. One of the screws, there's four M4 screws holding the handle in place. You can just reverse one of those, point it outward, and then we have as you can see, a little heat set threaded insert on the nub that screws onto there. And that's how our shaft of the joystick and the ball get stored. More heat set to put the joystick in, as well as I did some process photos of replacing the shaft on the joystick. Once you've replaced that, you can now remove it. That's what it'll look like. And then we screw the top plate in. Then we're going to set up the controller. So similar to some other fight stick builds that I've done before, put in the buttons. And now I've also got an Ethernet port on top that makes it easy to plug into SSH into, or do any modifications, send some files over in either direction. All of that I think is easier than trying to get Wi-Fi working. I didn't get Wi-Fi working at first and decided, yeah, I'm sure I can get Wi-Fi working, but how about I just put Ethernet on here and call it a day? Because I really don't love futzing around with Raspberry Pi settings on retro consoles. I'd rather bypass that. So I did in this case. And then we have our little breakout. So this, again, can follow any of the guides that I've done before on fight sticks with the KB2040, but I'll post a file if you want to have a PCB made that lets you use this standard wiring harness that is used by the GP2040 people, as well as the Brooks wiring harness. This is that. So it gets plugged in. And I also put an extra button on there that's the web config button. That just makes it easier before you've actually plugged in arcade buttons to get to the configuration. And also adding 2 little JST XPH headers here, which allow me to do external LED and external reset button on there easily. So there's the wiring harness pinout. We attach this to this 3D printed plate. Once again, I want to thank whoever it was in the chat a few weeks ago who told me, why don't you put all your Raspberry Pi and stuff on the inside of the lid so you don't have a sandwich with wires between them. And that has worked out great. So I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who that was. Dan Caliano, was that you? Someone else? But as you'll see here in the Raspberry Pi setup page, here's the Pi, adding a cooling fan, riser, the stereo bonnet, plug all that in, install your OS, and then we're going to attach the Pi to the mounting plate, or rather the mounting plate to the lid and then the Pi to the mounting plate. Just that order works better for how the screws are arranged. And there we go. That's the setup of the boards on the inside there. Much happier with this than my mess before. Then we're attaching the USB pass-through cable, a little Ethernet pass-through cable, USB-C power to the back, the controller USB connection. That's what it's looking like before the arcade button wiring harness, which is that right there. And you can see it's got the big daisy chain of ground connections. It's got the joystick connection. Here's the layout. This is the pin mapping that we're doing inside of the GP2040CE config. And then it's a bunch of plugging, and there are 3 rows of bundled cables for the sort of 3 rows of buttons, so they have some natural organization to them. And then I added some additional zip ties to kind of keep stuff a little organized. Then I'm harvesting that little 3mm LED from the original control panel of the record player, building a little resistor cable using the same arcade cable that we've used for other things. And that just gets pressed back into the lid where it originally was. And the way I'm lighting that up, you could probably light this up off of a GPIO pin from your Raspberry Pi, which would make a lot of sense. But since I have so much stuff stacked on the Pi and I didn't want to deal with breaking one of those out, then I instead set one of the buttons on the KB2040, or one of the pins on the KB2040 rather, to be a just a user LED pin that's always on. So it gives us pretty much the same effect. And this is a good spot to build the DIY HDMI cable. So it goes micro on one end, right angle, and a mini on the other end. So it's kind of a weird arrangement of what you need. I found this DIY ribbon cable the best way to do it. And then I also made a USB-C version of that. They're both the 30cm cables that we have. I plug those into my monitor externally at first, just to test it out before I start buttoning things up. And there it is. You can see Batacera and then one of my screens there. At this point, it's time to start assembling it. So we have our ribbon cables plugged into that monitor. Monitor goes into its 3D holder, into the screen. And that's, I have photos, but I haven't put them into the guide. So stay tuned. I'll finish this up, probably show you the rest of it next week. But you can imagine we plug a couple things in, close it, screw it down, play games. So that's where that is, and I'll show you the case itself. I'm just going to bring it over here just because, well, yeah, let me bring it over here and maybe I'll put it on the workbench too. Just because I have that front camera issue. So I'll probably do a little wiring loom sheathing for the 2 USB-C, because it takes one for the monitor and one for the Raspberry Pi, and we can't really share those. I put little right angle connectors on those just to make them stay lower than the little feet if we want to set it down while these are plugged in. And I'm coming up with a way to wrap the 2 identical power supplies around the feet there for travel. But for now, I'll unplug those, pull them out, and there's our game machine. And I left the joystick over here, actually. So. There. Go. Never forget to take that out before closing it, or you're going to be smashing your screen. Clicks right onto there for easy storage. So yeah, I think I'll show it in action next time. Because we're running low on time this week. I think biggest room for improvement, if someone else wants to tackle this, I'm not going to, would be to do battery power or some other power supply type of situation, but I'm not. I've looked at some of the arcade briefcase kinds of commercially available things out there, and they just have a ton of batteries in them. So you can do it, but you're powering something about as hungry as a laptop, so it's not a simple, not a single little LiPo kind of situation for that. But I'll leave mine as plug and play it on your lap, maybe bring it on the airplane if you've got a plug at your seat. You can do that, it'd be fun. All right, that is the show. That's what I've got. That's what I'm working on. That's the stuff I'm thinking about working on next. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out in the chats. Let me see, we got questions over in the YouTube. Let me bring that up. And this is from 112 Miguel. So the questions are related to the game machine, to the Attaché-Cade, I think. Does it work with Bluetooth? I have not set it up, but yes, I think you can set up a Bluetooth controller in Batocera on the Raspberry Pi. And I just can't, I can't remember the details of if that needs a receiver or not. You may have, something I'll try since I have that USB port on the top that you can plug things into. I may try it with a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. So you see that little square USB port there? You could do it internally too, but if you just wanted to test it out, that's where I would plug in a something like an 8-bit DOE controller that uses the little 2.4 gigahertz dongle, or you could probably put a little Bluetooth dongle in there. So good question. Are you going to post any custom files for this that might be useful? Yeah, I'll post all the 3D print files and any setup files that you need. There's not too much. It's really just a little overlay for using that stereo bonnet. And I'll also post the JSON file that's on my controller on the KB2040. Can the OS be installed via thumb drive? I do not know. I've only done it over SD card. This is Batocera that I'm using, and I'm not sure if that can be done over thumb drive. Let's see. Tyet says, feel like you need to use the arcade joystick handle in a hole to safely disengage the hinge angle lock. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, something where you can't close the thing while it's in the wrong spot. Be cool. 112 Miguel said, I wasn't live when you answered. I only just answered now, so you may just need to rewind like 1 minute. But yeah, to recap, I think you can do Bluetooth on it, but I haven't tried it. I'll try using something like a little, one of these little 2.4 gigahertz dongles. Usually they're USB-A. I converted this one to see the little 8-bit DOE style ones to do a wireless. Would be kind of cool. Mostly I play it just meant to be played on your lap with the arcade stick. And yes, I'll be putting files in the Learn Guide. Learn Guide should be out probably next week. And don't know about installing the OS on a thumb drive. All right. I think that's going to do it then. Over in Discord, we have a classic GIF right there. As is his name Vincent? Vincent checks out the Marcellus Wallace's soul. Is that what's in there? All right. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. I'll remind you, if you want to save some money over in the Adafruit store, go to adafruit.com. That's like walking right into the store. And that right there is the coupon code you'll need, RESTORE. That will save you 10% off in the shop. Just type that on the way out. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. I believe we have a deep dive tomorrow with Scott. Foamy Guy will be back on Tuesday with a deep dive. I will have another product pick of the week Wednesday. I'm not sure about show and tell. I know there's some people off right now. And I'm not sure about, not sure about 3D Hangouts or show and tell. And then I'll be back again next Thursday with this show, and there we are. So thank you everyone so much. I will see you next time for Adafruit Industries. I'm John Park. This has been John Park's Workshop. Bye-bye.
Thank you.